All right, folks, buckle up because tonight we're diving into one of those stories that crawls under your skin and stays there. You know the kind. The ones that make you double-check the shadows in your room before you turn out the lights. I'm Mr. Haunt, and if you're new here, I tell strange, dark and mysterious stories every week. And trust me, this one's going to stick with you. It's called The Woman in the Gap. Now, before we get into it, let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're back in college, those late nights cramming for exams, cheap ramen dinners, and that dingy little apartment that's barely big enough for you and your dreams. But what if something else was sharing that space with you? Something that wasn't invited. Something that never leaves. Yeah, that's where we're headed. And if you're thinking, oh, it's just a story, well, stick around till the end, because this one's based on a tale that's whispered in the dark corners of Japan, and it's got people swearing it's more than just folklore. Our story takes us to Tokyo, Japan, back in the early 2000s. Picture the city, towering skyscrapers piercing the smoggy sky, neon lights buzzing like angry hornets, and streets packed with people hustling through their lives. But zoom in on a quieter part of town. A run-down neighborhood where college kids scrape by in tiny apartments stacked like shoeboxes in some forgotten warehouse. That's where we meet our guy. Let's call him Hiroshi. He was your typical 20-year-old student, smart, ambitious, studying engineering at a local university. He had a group of buddies who were always hanging out, grabbing beers after class, talking about girls and video games. Life was good, or at least it was predictable. But then, things started to change. It was subtle at first. Hiroshi began skipping classes. Not just one or two. He vanished for days. His phone went straight to voicemail, texts unread. His friends, 3 of them, guys he'd known since high school, started whispering among themselves. "Hey, you heard from Hiroshi?" "Nah, man, he's ghosting us." At first they figured maybe he was burnt out or dealing with family stuff. College can do that to you, right? But when a whole week passed with no word, worry turned to action. They decided to swing by his place unannounced. "We'll drag him out for some ramen," one of them joked. "Get him back in the game." So, on a rainy afternoon, grey skies dumping sheets of water, the kind that soaks you to the bone, they piled into a beat-up car and headed over. Hiroshi's apartment was on the 3rd floor of this old building, the kind with creaky stairs and peeling paint on the walls. The hallway smelled like old takeout and cigarette smoke. They knocked on his door once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. Just the distant hum of traffic outside. One friend, let's call him Kenji, leaned in and pressed his ear against the wood. "Hiroshi, you in there, bro? Open up." Finally, after what felt like forever, they heard shuffling footsteps on the other side. The lock clicked, and the door creaked open just a crack. There he was. Hiroshi. But man, he looked rough. His face was pale, like he'd been drained of all color, with dark circles under his eyes that made him look 10 years older. His hair was a mess, clothes rumpled like he'd slept in them for days. He didn't smile, didn't even say hi. Just stared at them with these hollow eyes, like he was seeing ghosts. "Dude, what happened to you?" Kenji asked, pushing the door open wider. The other 2 friends followed him in, but the place, it was a disaster. Trash piled up in corners, dirty dishes in the sink, and the air was thick, stale, like no window had been opened in weeks. The curtains were drawn tight over the single window, letting in just slivers of that rainy daylight. It felt oppressive, like the room itself was holding its breath. Hiroshi shuffled back to his bed, a futon on the floor, and sat down, not saying a word. His friends exchanged glances. This wasn't the Hiroshi they knew. The guy who could crack jokes till you cried laughing. One of them, Taro, tried to play it cool. "Come on, man, let's air this place out. It's like a cave in here." He reached for the curtains, ready to yank them open. But Hiroshi's head snapped up, and he whispered, "No, Don't. His voice was hoarse, barely above a breath. I can't. She told me not to. The room went dead silent. Rain pattered against the window like fingers tapping. She? Kenji echoed, frowning. Who the hell is she? You got a girl in here or something? They looked around. No sign of anyone else. The apartment was tiny. Just a main room with a kitchenette, a bathroom off to the side. No place to hide. Hiroshi didn't answer right away. He just stared at the floor, his hands trembling. Then, slowly, he lifted a finger and pointed. Not at the door, not at the window, but at the wall. Specifically at this narrow gap between his old wooden bookcase and a beat-up wardrobe. It was maybe 5 centimeters wide, just a sliver of darkness where the furniture didn't quite line up flush against the wall. Dust bunnies and shadows filled it. Nothing more. His friends laughed nervously at first. What, you got a mouse problem or something? Taro quipped, but it fell flat. Hiroshi shook his head, his eyes wide with something that looked an awful lot like terror. Look, he muttered. Just look. Curiosity got the better of him. Kenji stepped forward first, bending down to peer into that gap. The others crowded in behind him, hearts starting to pick up speed, even though their brains were screaming this was stupid. At first, nothing. Just black emptiness, maybe a hint of the wall behind. But then, as their eyes adjusted to the dark, they saw it. Her. A woman. Standing perfectly still in that impossible space. She wasn't crouched or squeezed in. She was upright, facing them head-on. Her skin was unnaturally pale, almost glowing in the dim light. Long, stringy black hair hung over her face like a curtain, but through it you could see her eyes, wide, unblinking, staring right back at them with an intensity that froze the blood in your veins. No expression, just those eyes, locked on, like she was memorizing every detail of their souls. Kenji yelped and stumbled back, knocking into the others. What the? They all spun around, hearts pounding like drums, but when they looked again, the gap was empty. Just shadows and dust. No woman. No nothing. Hiroshi buried his face in his hands. She's always there, he whispered, his voice breaking. Always watching. She comes back. Every time. Now you might be thinking, okay, mass hallucination, bad lighting. But hold on, because this is where it gets really twisted. The friends grilled him. What happened? How did this start? Hiroshi, shaking like a leaf, finally spilled it. It all began about 2 weeks earlier. He'd been pulling an all-nighter, studying for midterms, when he heard it. A soft scratching sound, like nails on wood coming from that wall. He ignored it at first. Old building, probably rats. But it kept going, rhythmic, insistent. Scratch. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. Scratch. Curious, or maybe just annoyed, he got up and investigated. Pulled the bookcase out a bit, shone his phone flashlight into the gap, and there she was, the woman, staring. He screamed, shoved the furniture back, and told himself it was a trick of the light, exhaustion playing games. But the next night, scratch, scratch. He peeked again. She was closer, her eyes hungrier. He tried everything. Moved the furniture to block the gap completely. She'd appear in another crack, between the fridge and the counter, or under the bed. Opened the curtains for light. She'd whisper through the walls, "Close them, or I'll come out." He hadn't slept in days, hadn't eaten much. Every time he closed his eyes, he'd feel her gaze boring into him from the shadows. His friends? They were freaked out, but they weren't buying it fully. "Dude, you're hallucinating," Taro said. "Stress, maybe drugs. Let's get you to a doctor." But as they helped him pack a bag to crash at Kenji's place, something happened that sealed it. Kenji glanced back at the gap one last time, and she was there again, smiling now. A thin, razor-sharp grin that didn't reach those dead eyes. They bolted from that apartment, dragging Hiroshi with them. He stayed with Kenji for a bit, seemed to improve. Color came back, he started eating. But a few days later, Hiroshi vanished again. His friends searched everywhere, called the cops. Nothing. Until one of them got a text from Hiroshi's phone. "She's here, in the gaps, always watching." They went back to the apartment. Door unlocked. Inside, empty. Furniture gone, like it had never been lived in. But in the wall, that same narrow gap. They didn't look. They couldn't. Because deep down they knew, if they did, she'd be staring back. Now, folks, this story's circulated in Japan for years, passed from student to student like a warning. Some say it's an urban legend, inspired by old yokai tales, spirits that lurk in the liminal spaces, the cracks we ignore. Others, they swear it's real, point to missing persons cases that match the details. But here's the part that'll keep you up tonight. Think about your own room. That space behind the dresser, under the door, between the blinds. Ever feel like you're being watched? Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe she's there, always. If that chilled you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more strange, dark and mysterious tales. And tell me in the comments, what's the creepiest thing you've ever seen in the shadows? Sleep tight, if you can. Now picture this, a small quiet town in the American Midwest, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and the houses have been standing since the Great Depression. It's the kind of neighborhood where the trees are older than your grandparents, their roots cracking the sidewalks, and the streetlights flicker just enough to make you wonder if it's the bulb, or something else. This is where our guy Alan lived, a regular dude in his early 30s, married to his wife Sam, raising a blended family in a modest 3-bedroom house built in the late 1930s. The place wasn't fancy. Think creaky hardwood floors, a cramped bathroom with a clawfoot tub, and an enclosed patio they called the den. It had been renovated in the 70s, so it had that retro vibe. Wood paneling, shag carpet remnants, and a vibe that screamed lived in. The lot was big though, with a sprawling backyard that backed up to a wooded area, giving the house a kind of isolated feel, even in a neighborhood. Alan, now, he's the kind of guy you'd meet at a barbecue and instantly like. Laid back, quick with a laugh, the type to crack open a beer and talk about football or the latest horror flick. But here's the thing. Alan didn't believe in the supernatural. Not ghosts, not spirits, not karma, not even a hint of anything spiritual. He wasn't an atheist exactly. More agnostic, the kind of guy who'd say, "Show me proof, and maybe I'll buy it." Growing up, his family wasn't religious, and he carried that skepticism into adulthood. His best friend, the guy who sent me this story, would tell him about eerie experiences, strange noises, weird feelings in old houses, and Alan would just shrug, roll his eyes and say, "Yeah, right, man, whatever." To him, scary movies and Halloween were fun, but in a Disney way. Think Haunted Mansion ride, not exorcisms. Spooky was entertainment, not reality. Alan lived with Sam, his wife, who was the opposite. She believed in ghosts, spirits, the whole deal. They had a blended family. Sam's 2 teenage boys from a previous marriage, and a little girl they had together, a spunky 3-year-old named Lily. Life was normal, busy, the kind of chaos you'd expect with 3 kids in a small house. But about 15 years ago, something happened in that house that changed Alan forever. Something he still can't fully explain. It was a chilly autumn evening. the kind where the air smells like wet leaves and wood smoke. Sam had taken the boys shopping and was dropping them off at their cousin's house for a sleepover. That left Alan and Lily alone at home, a rare, quiet night. Alan decided it was the perfect time to get Lily ready for bed. He filled the old bathtub with warm water, bubbles foaming up, and sat on the floor next to it, keeping an eye on his daughter as she splashed around with her rubber duck. The bathroom door was open, letting in a draft from the hallway. The house had this quirky layout. The hallway ran through the middle, with the living room on one side, a T-junction leading to the two kids' bedrooms one way, the master bedroom the other, and the bathroom right across from it. From where Alan sat, he could see straight down that hallway, past the living room, into the dim corners of the house. He was humming some silly tune to keep Lily giggling when, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it. A figure. A woman with long jet-black hair gliding past the open bathroom door, heading toward the kids' bedrooms. It was quick, just a flash, but clear enough that his brain registered it as Sam. "Hey, honey!" he called out, figuring she'd popped home to grab something. No answer. The house stayed quiet except for Lily's splashing and the faint drip of the faucet. Alan frowned. That was weird. Sam wasn't due back for a while, but who else could it be? He stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans, and poked his head into the hallway. "Sam?" he called again. Nothing. Just the hum of the fridge in the kitchen and the soft glow of a lamp in the living room. Curiosity mixed with a tiny prickle of unease. He stepped out, leaving Lily in the tub for just a second, and checked the kids' bedrooms. Empty. Beds unmade, posters on the walls, but no Sam. He crossed to the living room, peered out the front window. Sam's car wasn't in the driveway. The street was empty, just wet pavement reflecting the streetlights. A chill ran down his spine, not the kind you get from a cold draft, but the kind that feels like someone's watching you. Alan's heart started to pound. He sprinted back to the bathroom, scooped Lily out of the tub, and wrapped her in a towel, his hands shaking. "Come on, kiddo," he muttered, carrying her to the master bedroom and setting her on the bed. He called out again, louder this time. "Sam, you here?" Silence. He checked every inch of the house. The kitchen, the den, the closets, even under the beds. Every door was locked, every window shut tight. No sign of anyone. His pulse was racing now, that chill spreading through his chest like ice water. He grabbed his phone and dialed Sam. She picked up, her voice cheerful. "Hey, what's up? I just dropped the boys off. Heading to the store now." Alan's throat tightened. "You didn't just stop by, did you? Like, to grab something?" A pause. "No, why?" she asked, her tone shifting to concern. Alan swallowed hard. I just saw a woman in the house. Long black hair. Walked right past the bathroom." The line went quiet for a second. "Alan, I'm not there," Sam said slowly. "Stay with Lily. I'll be home soon." He hung up, his mind spinning. He brought Lily to the living room, plopped her in front of some cartoons, and sat there, eyes darting to every shadow, every corner. The house felt wrong, like the air was too heavy, the silence too loud. Nothing was touched, nothing out of place, but that image of the woman burned in his mind. Long black hair. Silent steps. Gone. When Sam got home, Alan told her everything. She didn't laugh, didn't roll her eyes. She just nodded, her face pale. "You probably saw a ghost," she said matter-of-factly. Alan scoffed, but it was weak, more reflex than conviction. "Come on, Sam. There's no such thing." But deep down, he wasn't so sure anymore. Life went back to normal, or as normal as it could. Alan tried to shake it off, chalk it up to exhaustion, a trick of the light. But the house didn't feel the same. He'd catch himself glancing at the hallway, avoiding the bathroom door at night. A couple of months later, something else happened. Something worse. It was late, past midnight, and Alan and Sam were curled up on the couch, watching some old horror movie. The kids were asleep, Lily in her room, the boys in theirs. The house was dark except for the flickering glow of the TV. Alan was half dozing, his head lolling against the armrest, when Sam suddenly screamed his name. "Alan! Alan, are you okay?" He snapped awake, confused, his heart hammering. What's wrong?" Sam was kneeling in front of him, her face white as a sheet, tears in her eyes. You were moaning like you were in pain," she stammered. "Your head dropped and you were making these noises. Ugh, 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 like you couldn't breathe. Your eyes were wide open and your arms were shaking, Alan. I thought you were having a seizure." Alan blinked, trying to process it. He didn't remember any of it. To him, he'd just nodded off for a second. "I'm fine," he said, but his voice was shaky. Sam wasn't having it. She dragged him to the ER that night, convinced he'd had a stroke or something. They were young, early 30s, but you don't mess around with stuff like that. The hospital ran every test in the book, EKGs, CT scans, blood work. Nothing. The doctors shrugged, said maybe it was a panic attack or sleep paralysis. "Get some rest," they told him, like that was an option after something like that. Sam was rattled. She swore it wasn't just Alan dozing off. It was like, "Something was wrong with you," she told him later. Like something was in you. Alan didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to think about ghosts or spirits, or anything that challenged the walls he'd built around his skepticism. But that chill from the bathroom incident? It was back, stronger now, burrowing into his bones. Not long after they moved out. Not because of the incidents. At least, that's what Alan told himself. They'd found a bigger house, better for the kids, closer to Sam's job. Practical reasons. But his friend, the one who shared this story, noticed Alan never quite settled into that old house again. He'd get jumpy at night, check the locks twice, keep the TV on for background noise, and when his friend asked him about it point blank, "Do you believe in ghosts now?" Alan hesitated. "Honestly, man," he said, "I don't know what to believe. Part of me doesn't want to, because if I do, I don't think I'll ever sleep again." Now, folks, here's where it gets real. Alan's friend swears this story is true down to every detail. And when you dig into the history of houses like that, old, built in the 30s, sitting on land that's seen decades of life and death, you start to wonder. Was it a trick of the mind? A tired dad seeing shadows? Or was something lingering in that house? Something tied to that hallway, those walls, that bathroom door? And here's the kicker. Alan's friend mentioned that after they moved, the new owners of the house didn't stay long either. They sold it within a year, citing weird vibes. Coincidence? Maybe. So let me ask you this. What do you think Alan saw that night? A ghost? A hallucination? Or something else entirely? And if you were in his shoes, staring down that hallway, knowing you saw something that wasn't supposed to be there, could you sleep? Hit that like button if this story gave you chills. Subscribe for more tales that'll keep you up at night, and drop a comment below. What's the creepiest thing you've seen in your own house? Stay safe out there, folks, and maybe keep the lights on tonight. All right, folks, settle in, because tonight we're stepping into a tale that's straight out of the shadows of Japanese folklore. The kind of story that whispers through neighborhoods, passed from friend to friend in hushed tones, until it feels less like a rumor and more like a warning. I'm Mr. Haunt, and if you're new here, I tell strange, dark and mysterious stories every week, And trust me, this one's going to make you think twice about hitting play on any old video file. It's called The Cursed Video That Shouldn't Exist. Now, to set the scene, let's transport you back to the rugged mountains of Japan, where the air is crisp and thin, and the peaks rise like jagged teeth against the sky. This is the world of free climbing. No ropes, no harnesses, just you, your chalk-dusted hands, and sheer willpower gripping onto rock faces that could crumble at any moment. It's a thrill-seeker's paradise, but it's also a gambler's game, where one wrong move means a long, fatal drop. Our story centers on a man we'll call Takashi. He was obsessed with it. Free climbing wasn't just a hobby, it was his lifeblood. Weekends, vacations, every spare moment, he'd scale those impossible heights, chasing the rush of conquering nature's deadliest walls. His friends admired him for it. His wife worried sick, and his little daughter, just a toddler, idolized him as her invincible dad. But Takashi wasn't naive. He knew the risks. One crisp autumn day, about a year into his deepest climbing phase, he pulled his best friend aside during a hike. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows over the trails, and the wind carried that earthy scent of pine and impending rain. "Hey," Takashi said, his voice steady but serious. "I need a favor. Record a video for me, just in case." His friend raised an eyebrow, but Takashi explained. A simple farewell message, something heartfelt for his wife and daughter if he ever didn't come back from a climb. "Make sure they know how much I love them," he added, smiling faintly. So, they found a quiet spot, a rocky outcrop with the mountains sprawling behind him like a dramatic backdrop. Takashi sat down, looked straight into the camera lens, and spoke calmly, his words warm and composed. "If you're watching this, I'm sorry I didn't make it, but know that every climb was worth it because it led me back to you two. I love you more than the summits." It was poignant, peaceful. His friend hit stop, saved the file on a digital camera, and promised to keep it safe. They laughed it off as a precaution, like buying insurance you hope you'll never use. Life rolled on. Takashi kept climbing, summiting peak after peak, coming home with stories of near misses and triumphs that made his family's hearts race. 6 months ticked by. Fall turned to winter, winter to spring. He celebrated his daughter's birthday, took his wife on a quiet date night, even planned a family trip. Everything normal, everything alive. Then tragedy struck. It was a sunny weekend in the Japanese Alps, the kind of day climbers dream of: clear skies, firm grips. Takashi was tackling a notorious route, one he'd eyed for years. Witnesses later said he was in top form, moving like a shadow up the sheer face. But halfway up, a loose hold gave way. He plummeted, hundreds of feet, his body crumpling against the rocks below. Rescue teams confirmed it. Instant death. No suffering, they assured the family, but that was cold comfort. The news ripped through his circle. Friends in shock, his wife devastated, his little girl too young to fully grasp the void. The memorial was held a week later in a small community hall in their hometown, the air thick with incense and muffled sobs. Cherry blossoms were just starting to bloom outside, a cruel reminder of life's fleeting beauty. Family and friends gathered, sharing stories, toasting to Takashi's spirit. As the evening wound down, his wife, eyes red and swollen, turned to that best friend. "The video," she whispered. "He mentioned it once. Do you have it?" The friend nodded, his stomach twisting. He'd almost forgotten, buried it in a drawer like a bad omen. But he pulled out the old camera, connected it to a laptop, and with the room falling silent, hit play in front of the gathered relatives. At first, it was exactly as recorded. Takashi appeared on screen, the mountains behind him, his face calm and resolute. He started speaking those familiar words. "If you're watching this, I'm sorry." The family leaned in, tears flowing, finding solace in his steady voice. But then, something shifted. Subtly at first. His expression flickered, not the warm smile they remembered, but a twitch, a shadow crossing his eyes. His voice cracked, the audio distorting like an old tape warping. I don't want to die," he stammered, his tone rising from composed to trembling panic. The family froze, exchanging confused glances. This wasn't right. "I don't want to die," he repeated, louder now, desperate, his face contorting in terror. The background seemed to darken unnaturally, the mountains fading into an inky void. And then, the horror unfolded. From the edge of the screen, out of that unnatural darkness, something emerged. A hand. Pale, elongated, fingers like twisted branches, reaching out as if from another dimension. It clamped onto Takashi's arm with inhuman strength. He screamed, a raw, blood-curdling wail that echoed through the hall. "No, I don't want to die!" The hand yanked, dragging him sideways off the frame, his body vanishing into the black abyss. The video cut to static, then nothing. Chaos erupted. Relatives screamed, some jumping back from the screen like it was cursed. His wife collapsed, sobbing hysterically. "What was that?" someone yelled. Accusations flew. "Is this a joke? A cruel prank?" But the friend swore up and down. He hadn't touched the file. No edits, no effects. It was the same camera, the same recording. They replayed it, hearts pounding, and it happened again. Exact same nightmare sequence. Word spread fast. Neighbors whispered about it over tea. Kids retold it in schoolyards with wide eyes. The family, desperate for answers, called in a local priest, a Shinto expert known for dealing with the uncanny. The priest arrived the next day, the house heavy with dread. He examined the camera, watched the video in solemn silence. As the hand appeared, his face paled. He stopped it midway, shaking his head. "This isn't something we can handle," he said gravely. "You've brought something terrible into this world. Destroy it. Burn the camera if you have to. No rituals, no blessings." He wanted nothing to do with it. The family, terrified, did as he said. They smashed the device, deleted copies, tried to erase it from existence. But the damage was done. Nightmares plagued them, dreams of that hand reaching from shadows, Takashi's screams echoing in the dark. Now, here's what keeps people up at night, and what turned this from a sad accident into a full-blown urban legend. How did the video change? It was recorded 6 months before his death, on a day when Takashi was alive, healthy, far from any fall. No one tampered with it. Digital forensics from curious investigators later confirmed the file was untouched. And why the plea? "I don't want to die," as if he knew his fate. Some say the video captured more than images and sound. Maybe it snagged a piece of the future, or worse, invited something in. A yokai, a restless spirit, lurking in the digital void, waiting to pull the living across. This story circulated in Japan for decades, evolving with technology, from VHS tapes to smartphones. But the core chill remains. People swear variations happen to them. A home video twisting into horror. A selfie showing eyes in the background that weren't there. And in climbing circles? It's a taboo tale, a reminder not to tempt fate with just-in-case recordings. So let me leave you with this. Next time you're filming a message, a vlog, or even a quick clip on your phone, pause and think. What if the camera sees more than you do? What if it's not just capturing the moment, but inviting something back? If this story got under your skin, smash that like button. Subscribe for more tales that'll haunt your dreams, and tell me in the comments, what's the creepiest video you've ever seen? Sleep tight, folks, and maybe leave the recording off tonight.